Good job, Rod. Woo! Wow, nice fish.
Yes! Wow!
Great job.
Good boy, he inhaled the bug.
Yeah, he crushed it.
Nice walleye.
Wow!
Stud walleye. There are giants everywhere.
Hammer!
Big one. He'll come back after. He's after. Right there. He's after.
That right there. He's a pig. Hi guys, I'm Rod Young. And over the past 25 years, I've made several fishing videos for White River Air. But this year I wanted to do something a little different. I wanted to gear this video towards those of you that are coming up with White River Air for your very first time. I want to go over some of the tackle that we use, some of the presentations that we use to try to help you to get on fish quickly. You got to keep in mind that these remote lakes are not pressured very heavy. A lot of people think, oh geez, you know, I need to be running planer boards. I need to be using live bait. I need to make sure that I've got this type of tackle and this type of tackle. So I'm going to give you what you need to know to get on fish quickly when you make your first trip with White River Air. Well guys, we'll get to the water in just a few minutes, but there's a couple of things I want to go over with you first. So the first thing that I'm going to go over is what we use for tackle. First of all, keep it simple. For years and years and years, I used to take a massive tackle box in. I actually used to take that guy right there. And over the years, I've been able to simplify it and just simply get it down to what is the bare bones basic that you need. Because 99% of the time, the only lure that's on my line for walleyes is a 1/4 ounce jig with a 3-inch grub tail. Most of the time a white grub tail. So what I've done is I've pared down my tackle. Obviously, this is my tackle box now, and I love to fly fish for northern pike, so I've got all my flies in the top here. Most of you probably are not into fly fishing, and that's fine. But here's what I have underneath, just one tray with my basics. And like I said, most of the time, 99% of the time, it's that little guy right there. 1/4 ounce jig head. I like to roll bright colors, orange, bright red, sometimes even a chartreuse color will work well. And then to tip it with the grub tail, like I said, 3-inch. 3-inch grub tail, white is the go-to color. Now, you know, we've experimented with scented and unscented grub tail. I mean, like the Gulp, Yum, Power Bait, those type of things versus just the basic old Mr. Twister. And to be honest, most of the time, we can't simply tell any difference at all. We fished them side by side. Now, there are times, maybe when the fish are a little more negative, maybe a cold front's come through, that it does seem like maybe the Gulp puts a few more fish in the boat, but over the course of the trip, I don't think it makes that much of a difference actually. Now we don't roll any live bait, but that's not to say that there aren't times of the year when maybe minnows or crawlers or leeches may be a little bit more effective, but once again, we have fished them side by side. Crawler versus your jig tipped with just the grub tail, and the guy with just the plastic grub tail will catch just as many, if not more. So we just don't even mess around with live bait. You got to keep in mind that these lakes are not pressured hard at all. When you fly in with White River Air, on most of their lakes, I think they've got 26 lakes. On most of their lakes, you're going to be the only camp in there. They only have one camp on the lake. So you don't have the fishing pressure where you're going to go out and see 6, 7, 8 other boats working an area that you want to work. Now another thing that we'll use for bait, and like I said, it's the jig, 1/4 ounce jig and grub tail 99% of the time. But one other thing that we'll use sometimes is this little guy right here. Notice I've got a few crankbaits in here, not many. My jig supply is actually pretty low right now. I like to take at least 50 jigs up with me. But this little lure right here is called a walleye diver. See if I can get it out of there. There we go. This happens to just be a small little gold walleye diver. This bait will run about 8 feet deep. And there's been times when this has absolutely crushed the walleyes. Other than that, like I said, I don't roll many crankbaits at all. But I've got a few Rapalas, Shad Raps, things like that. But those, trust me, are the go-to lure. Also, people, if you're using crawlers, sometimes I can get it out here. People will go with a floating jig head, and you take the floating jig head and tip it with a crawler, minnow, or leech, and run a slip sinker up in front of it, maybe 18 inches or so. This is a great tactic as well for catching walleyes. Okay guys, so that's a quick look at basically the tackle that I take up. You probably noticed that there wasn't any spoons or spinners for fishing northern pike. Again, we like to target those with our fly rods. But it's a great idea to have spoons, spinners, things like that, large Rapalas, crankbaits for the northern pike. But honestly, I've had tons of people ask me, hey, how do you catch big pike in the summer? What do you use? And they kind of look at me sideways when I tell them that basically most of our big pike just simply come from 1/4 ounce jigs and grub tails, jigging for walleyes. Over the last 25 years, we've probably caught 20 pike over 20 pounds just jigging for walleyes. Next, guys, let's shift gears and talk about how and where we catch most of our walleyes when fishing with White River Air. The first thing that I look for when I get on a new lake with White River Air is I want to try to find water depth between 7 and 10 feet. That just seems to be money for us. If you can get to 7 to 10 foot and find some structure, rocks, weeds, and so forth, that seems to be where most of the walleyes are located. Now, will they go deeper at times? Sure. I mean, we've caught walleyes 15, 16 foot of water, obviously. But the go-to depth is 7 to 10 feet. Now, what do we do when we find that type of water? What we like to do is we just simply will set the boat up and troll. And when you troll, you think, okay, I'm running planer boards, I'm running things like that. A lot of people are used to fishing the Great Lakes. No planer boards. All we simply do is toss the 1/4 ounce jig behind the boat and just snap jig. Snap jig. As you're moving along, just pull your jig forward, let it fall back. And if you get a real nice slow troll going, that jig will get right down near the bottom in 8 feet of water. And then the other person in the front of the boat, a tactic that we like to use is have that person cast up next to shore and just kind of jig, slowly work the jig back to the boat, and then go ahead and make another cast up to shore. By doing that, you can cover water and hopefully be able to get yourself on some structure quickly and also get on some walleyes quickly. Okay, once again, like I said, just snap jigging, working it back where we've hit our first fish. What we found here, a little piece of structure as we worked up this shoreline. I'll have Logan swing around with the camera here in a minute. Some rocks that have jutted out here. I noticed that on my graph it came up from about maybe 15 feet up to 7.5, 8 feet. Oh, he jumped off right here at the boat. But came up from about 15 feet to 7, 8 feet. Got a bunch of rocks in here with some weeds, and we're on some fish. So we're going to slow down here and work this area. Now, I mentioned that we don't use any live bait, but that doesn't mean if you don't feel more confident using crawler harnesses, or if you're using a floating jig head, tipping it with a leech or a minnow, then by all means go ahead and do that. Now, once you pick up some fish, snap jigging or trolling along the shoreline, or you run into some structure where you start to hit fish, you got to take your time, slow down, and work that area. Obviously, walleye are schooling fish. So we'll just kick the motor out of gear, sit there, stay on that structure, and see if you can pick up 4 or 5 or 6 other fish right around that particular area. Not a bad walleye. Maybe, I don't know, 22, right in that ballpark. You've heard me talk about, obviously, just using the 1/4 ounce jig in the grub tail here in jigging. And a lot of people think, oh well, just jigging is jigging. You just throw the thing out and jig it back. And essentially you do, but one thing that you definitely want to make sure of is once you toss your jig out, and again, water that we're looking for is anywhere from maybe 10 up to 7 feet. That's 7 to 10 foot water is where the fish always seem to hang for us. And we cast out, I like to just count to 3. 1, 2, 3. Let the jig settle a little bit, and then just simply pop it and reel. Pop it and reel. We pulled into what seems to be a little bowl here, and it goes down to 10 foot. We just picked up, obviously, this walleye, and Logan had one on. So we're going to do a little casting around. I'll show you how we jig. There's a fish right there. Just cast it out. Let it sink, counted to 3, and 1 right here in this bowl. Geez, this is a nice walleye too. Nice eye. I'm gonna back the boat out so we stay out of this hole. Okay, like I said, just cast out. We don't make very long casts. Count to about 3, and then pop it. Actually, there's one right there. Must have dropped it on his head. This lake, dude, this lake is unbelievable, huh?
Crazy.
Now, obviously, walleyes like wind. And if you've got a windy day, then you can set up a drift along a piece of structure or along a shoreline. Now, I don't worry about just vertical jigging over the side of the boat. I actually like to cast out maybe 10 yards and let that jig fall down to the bottom and just pop it up off the bottom, let it fall again, pop it up, let it fall again. Deadly tactic for walleyes when you find them concentrated in an area. Always follow the wind. When the wind's banging in against the shoreline, it's knocking stone flies off from the rocks, it's knocking the caddis casings off the rocks, it's stirring up the minis. That's where the walleyes are going to be. So follow the wind. That right there is a pig. And those of you that do a lot of walleye fishing, I mean, this is what we roll all the time, right there. Just a orange head 1/4 ounce with a white grub tail. Fishing this hump out here and just jigging around and thump this big walleye. Can you get on him there? This is a big fish. Look at the big hump back on him. Now, as far as the best time of day to catch walleyes, a lot of people would assume that, geez, you need to be out of bed at 6 in the morning and be on the water when those light levels are extremely low to catch these walleyes. But actually, our best walleye fishing is right during the middle of the afternoon, right after lunch. Again, if you've got the wind and the waves, you're going to be able to locate some structure and get on some fish. You don't have to be out there at the crack of dawn. Now, in the evening, a lot of times the walleyes will move super shallow. They'll get up into 3-4 foot of water. Sometimes they'll go right into mucky bays if you're there before the mayfly hatch, and they'll root around for the mayfly larvae. So keep in mind, these walleyes will relate to structure, and they're not afraid to go shallow. We've picked up a lot of 27, 28-inch walleyes in less than 4 feet of water. Now, as far as rods and reels for walleye fishing, let me grab this one right over here. I just like to use a medium light action. This happens to be a Fenwick. I don't know if that's showing up very good. 6.5 foot rod. Just make sure that your rods are 2-piece rods or 3 or 4-piece rod, pack rod. Just because they'll fit in the plane much better, you can get a smaller rod tube on them. But again, a high quality, medium light action rod. This reel here happens to be a Mitchell reel that I have. Love this reel. It's 2000 series, holds about 170 yards of 6-pound test, and that's what I roll, 6-pound test. I like Trilene XL green. It's very forgiving. I don't fish braid. I pretty much just stick with mono. So to wrap up, guys, hey, I can't stress enough just to keep it simple. You don't need a lot of tackle. You don't need a lot of fancy equipment. You don't need planer boards. Just keep it simple and you will be successful. Look for the structure. Look for that 8 foot of water depth. Make sure that you're fishing where the wind's rolling in against the shoreline or over the structure. Okay, and again, weather conditions are everything. You get a hot, flat day, of course the fishing is going to be tough. You have a major cold front come through, of course the fishing is going to be a little slower. But when you have the right weather conditions and you use the correct tackle, 1/4 ounce jig head, 3-inch grub tail, trust me, if you find structure, you're going to find walleyes. Have a great fishing trip.